I agreed to help a stranger for 10 minutes, and it quietly rewrote my future. It happened on a morning I already wanted to skip. I was running late, coffee lukewarm in my hand, brain crowded with deadlines and the familiar thought that my life felt stuck on pause. I remember thinking, just get through today. Nothing more, nothing hopeful. Just survive it. That's when I heard someone call out, "Excuse me?" I almost ignored it. I actually took 2 more steps before stopping. An older man stood near the entrance of the subway, holding a folded map like it belonged to another century. The paper was creased and soft at the edges, used too many times. He looked embarrassed, like asking for help cost him something. "I think I'm lost," he said, and my phone died. 10 minutes, I thought. I can spare 10 minutes. We sat on a cold metal bench while I explained directions, tracing routes with my finger in the air. But halfway through, I realized he wasn't really listening, not because he didn't care, but because he wanted to talk. He told me about his wife, how she used to navigate everywhere, even places they'd been dozens of times, how she loved maps and hated GPS, how quiet the city felt without her, how this was the first time he'd gone out alone since she passed. His voice didn't break. That somehow made it harder. I checked the time. I already missed my train. I didn't regret it. When we stood up, he thanked me in a way that lingered, not rushed, not polite, but real. The kind of thank you that lands somewhere deeper than courtesy. Before leaving, he reached into his coat and handed me a small business card. On it was the name of a local community workshop. On the back, in shaky handwriting, he'd written, "If you ever feel lost too." I smiled, slipped it into my pocket, and went on with my day. And honestly, I forgot about it. Or at least I thought I did. Weeks later, on a night when my apartment felt too silent and my thoughts too loud, I found the card while emptying my jacket. It slid onto the floor like it had been waiting. I picked it up and stared at it longer than necessary. Then, without overthinking it, before fear could talk me out of it, I went. The workshop was small, warm, mismatched chairs, chipped mugs, soft lighting, a mix of people who didn't quite fit anywhere else, artists, retirees, students, people clearly between chapters. No one asked what I did for a living. No one asked why I was there. They just said, "You can sit anywhere." I kept coming back. At first, it was just something to fill the evenings. Then it became the place where I laughed without forcing it, where silence wasn't awkward, where I talked about fears I'd never said out loud and wasn't rushed to fix them, where I realized how much of myself I'd been shrinking to fit a life that didn't feel like mine anymore. One night, across the room, I caught a familiar smile. The man from the subway raised his cup slightly. "Told you," he said softly. Months passed. I made friends. I stayed after sessions to help clean up. I started helping organize events. Someone suggested I lead a small group. I almost said no. Old habits die hard. But this time, I said yes. That yes led to another, and another. I didn't suddenly become fearless. I didn't magically fix my life. But I stopped feeling lost. I stopped measuring my worth by productivity and started measuring it by connection, by presence, by the quiet certainty that I mattered, not because I was impressive, but because I showed up. Sometimes I think about that morning in the subway, about how close I was to walking past him, about how small choices don't announce themselves as important when you're making them. They only reveal their weight later. All I did was stop for 10 minutes. But those 10 minutes gave me a place to belong, and eventually, a version of myself I actually recognize.